Well, hi, my name is Michael Saminsky. For my senior year project, I did trail building, or how to build a trail that's environmentally friendly, that's conscious of the environment that it goes through in the nature. So this might seem kind of random, just trail building, and it was kind of random. I didn't even know that trail building was a thing until about last year, when me and my friends were going hiking in the summer, and we're going on the trail, and we turn the corner, and we see a construction crew. And for me, seeing a construction crew in the middle of the forest was pretty weird. I mean, they seemed really out of place, and I was really confused. I looked around for a structure that they might have been building, but I didn't see anything. Then it kind of dawned on me, oh, they're working on the trail. They're building a trail. And so ever since then, I've kind of been curious about that. And then also, I've been hiking for a lot of my life, and I know that it's like made me a healthier person, and I want to be kind of responsible for promoting that healthy lifestyle. So I want to offer a place that's accessible for people to go outdoors and enjoy nature. And as far as the environmental aspect goes, when I want to build a trail, I want to build it right. I don't think there's a point in building a trail that degrades the habitat in any way. So when I was trying to find a place, I was kind of looking everywhere at first. I wasn't having a lot of luck. I knew that I wanted to design and construct a trail, but I realized that after talking with a lot of professionals and reading all the literature, I found that that was probably not possible in just one term. So I kind of narrowed my scope and looked around in Newton for maybe parks that were already had trails constructed, but just needed maintenance or to be fixed up. So I found this park called Nahan Park. I don't know if you guys know it, but it's near the Needham border. It's a really great park because it's in really bad condition, which for my project is perfect. I mean, you can see here, this is one of the trails. It's pretty badly eroded. So I was really excited. I was like, yes, there's just so much stuff I can fix here. And as far as erosion goes, it's really bad for the environment because, as you see, people walk around the eroded parts and they crush vegetation, and it gets flooded very easily. So I was really excited, and I had this dream that I would just walk up every day, kind of just start working. It wasn't that easy. So I started trying to get permission, and I started with the Newton Parks and Recreation Department, and then they kind of sent me to someone else, and then I kept getting sent from person to person. And I mean, this email is just kind of the epitome of every email that I got. Hello, Michael. You'll need to speak with the Nahan Park manager. She's on vacation this week and will return next week. I mean, it was just this huge process of everyone kept shuffling me down. And by the time I talked to someone who knew something, they pretty much told me that if I wanted to build there, I'd have to talk to another committee, and the committee wouldn't have made a decision for a year. So that kind of ruled out any public land. And it was interesting because prior to the whole process of trying to find a place, I had an interview with a trail builder, and I'd asked him what was the hardest part about building a trail. And he had said, probably just getting permission to build it. And when I read that answer, I was like, well, I was skeptical because it's probably hard, but it can't be the hardest part. Well, I definitely think it is. It was just such a process. But luckily, I did have a backup plan. My friend has private land in Brownfield, Maine, and their family needed a trail. They had a trail there, but they wanted a better trail from the road to the campsite. So that actually worked out really well for me. Here's the land. The trail goes from Brookside Acres Road right up there to 10 Mile Pond. And since now I was building a new trail, my project pretty much doubled. I'd have to design and construct this trail. So I decided to extend the senior project into summer, where I'd be designing and just learning about the trail for fourth term and then actually constructing it in the summer. So here's just another picture. The dotted line is the road, and that's again the pond, and then here's what the trail looks like when I actually designed it. As far as designing a trail that's environmentally friendly, I found that there are 4 factors that must be considered. So it's sustainable grade, keeping the water off, good soil, and vegetation. As far as sustainable grade goes, there's a rule called the half rule that says that when you're building a trail, it cannot exceed half of the slope of the hill that it's built on. So this is a picture of the original trail. It's really kind of hard to tell, but basically it's a vertical trail that just follows straight up the hill, and it's really, really, really steep. Like, you have to dig your toes in and kind of climb up. So, and that's really bad because, first of all, this trail has been walked on maybe a handful of times, but it was already seeing a lot of erosion, and I was really surprised at that. So just to be sustainable, it can't really be that steep. So to fix that, I made a trail that kind of winds up. And I don't know if any of you are skiers, but it's the same principle when you're skiing. You don't want to just go straight down if you want to kind of be controlled. You want to make these wide S-turns. And these are called climbing turns in trail building talk. And those flags are the flags that I kind of mapped out. You can see that they curve around, and they do that for a lot of it. So the next factor is keeping water off the trail. And pretty much everyone I asked, or every book I read, said that this was the most important thing that can be done. And pretty much all the other factors work to keep water off. Like, if it's really steep, then water will rush down much faster. But to combat the water on the trail, there's a lot of methods, hundreds of them, but I just picked, for this trail specifically, 2 of the simplest and most effective methods. The first is a grade dip, which is really all it is a reversal in elevation of the trail. If the trail is kind of going straight, it'll dip down and then make a hump. And that way, when water goes down, it can't, get over that, so it just goes off to the side. And I was really fortunate because the land where I'm building the trail actually has a lot of these grade dips just built into the contour. So that will be really easy. I'll just have to kind of clear it up, maybe make it a little sharper, but otherwise they're already pretty much there. And then outsloping. Outsloping the tread. The tread is the trail, and like the surface of the trail, and outsloping it is when you tilt it outwards. And if you picture this as a cross-section of the hill, you can see that the flat part is the trail, and that should be tilted downwards 3 to 4%. And that makes it so that water doesn't stay, when it goes down the hill, water doesn't stay on the inside, it just keeps traveling down. And the 3 to 4% is really important, because if it's too outsloped, then people will just not walk on it, and they'll walk around again, crushing vegetation, leading to more erosion. So it has to be a very subtle thing. The next factor of an environmentally friendly trail is good soil. Soil, the characteristics of good soil depend on 2 factors, composition and depth. Basically, the best composition you can have for good soil is, it has to be made of loam and gravel. Loam is a mixture of sand, silt, and clay, and gravel is gravel. So a mixture of those is actually very, very good, because then it kind of glues all the soil together, and it keeps it from eroding, and it's solid. So what we have in Brownfield, Maine is just loam with very little gravel, which, considering the lack of foot traffic, is perfect. Loam is pretty much the second best building soil that I could have, so I'm not worried about that at all as far as erosion goes. And then to figure out that I had loam, there's a test called the ribbon test, where you pick up some soil. It's kind of fun. You roll it into a ribbon, and then depending on the characteristics of the ribbon, the length, what it looks like, if it's grainy or not, you can determine what kind of soil you have. And then depth. I checked the depth on the land, and it was greater than 3 feet to the bedrock. I'm not sure exactly how deep it is, but pretty much if it's deeper than 3 feet, then water can percolate and drain down, so it shouldn't even be a problem. And then finally, vegetation. So vegetation is really important because you need to clear it off the trail, and you can use it to your advantage. So brushing and clearing is when you cut down the branches and all the other grassy kind of things in the way of the trail. And the trail right-of-way is kind of the passage that you have to clear. And it consists of about 4 feet from the center of the trail, either side. And even if the trail itself isn't that wide, it's good to have that corridor cleared, just so people can walk comfortably through. But other than clearing it, you can use the vegetation to your advantage. I tried to avoid unnecessary clearing because I didn't want to just cut down everything in the way. I tried to design the trail around like big bushes that I'd have to clear out because A, that's easier for me, and again, I didn't want to unnecessarily cut anything. And then things like trees you can use to your advantage again. When you're building around trees, it's always a good idea to build above trees, because the roots in that way hold the soil together again and stop erosion, as opposed to if the trail went under trees, in which case it could expose roots, and then your tree could start getting in bad condition. But when I was reading and planning out how I would kind of clear vegetation and cut down stuff, I was kind of worried because I was thinking, you know, building trails destroys nature. Isn't that kind of hypocritical if I'm trying to build an environmentally friendly trail? And I was worried that through my research I'd find that like the most environmentally friendly trail is one that doesn't exist, and that would be a problem. So, you know, it kept plaguing me, and to be honest, I kind of just pushed it out of my mind every time it came up. And it, you know, I read all the books and I interviewed people, but none of them had that answer. That was something that I kind of found out when I went to Maine. And it was cool because that was just my primary research just part that was really obvious. So I figured out that there was already a trail there, and it was a pretty bad trail. Like I said, it was really steep. There were parts that were already eroding. So I figured out that, you know, the whole point of having a good trail is that it protects the environment around it. It protects the nature by keeping people on the trail and like preventing more damage. So it's kind of like the lesser of the two evils thing. So I figured that out. As far as the tools for designing go, I brought most of the tools that I brought up to Maine. Let's see. So I have let me, hold on a sec. I have the 33-foot measuring tape. I had to get the biggest one I could. The compass I used, I had to figure out how to learn. I had to learn how to use it, and now I know how to use a compass, which is cool. And I was able to orientate myself. Flags. You guys saw pictures. I had to put these up about every 5 feet. Let's see. Markers, felt tip markers for writing on the flags. The log book, which has a log of every location of the flag. And let's see, the GPS. This is really frustrating that I have this now because I forgot it when I went up to design the trail. And this would have just made the whole thing so much easier because you can map out the route. It tells you your elevation, so you can just figure out the slope of things when you move. So I will definitely not be forgetting this the next time I go up. And clinometer actually does the same thing. It tells you what the slope of things are. And I don't have one with me. I ordered one. It should be on the way, and I'm going to use it to double check that all my slopes are sustainable. But also I'm hoping that the GPS will let me double check that as well. So that's my design aspect. For construction in the summer, I'm going to be using volunteers to do each kind of one of these goals. And I'll be using a method called one-time conservation events. It's when you have, instead of saying like, okay, I'm going to go up and we're all going to go up and we're just going to build a trail, you've broken it down so that you have specific goals for each group. I'm going to take up 3 to 4 volunteers each of these weekends to work on a specific thing. So I'll just go through this. Trailhead clearing and completion of the survey. Completion of the survey is just the checking of the clinometer or with the GPS to make sure that all the grades are sustainable. Then the next time I'll be clearing, those are just 2 points I named. July 9th through 11th, I'll be making a switchback, which is kind of a sharper climbing turn. It's for when you don't have room for a climbing turn, you need a quicker way of getting up. You can build this really sharp turn that still is a good thing to have. And then the next week I'll be working on that again, and then finally I'll be clearing to the campsite and marking the whole trail with tape. So as far as construction goes, that should take up most of June and July. Hopefully, and if need be, I can go into August without a problem. And the tools for construction, I obviously didn't bring them here because that's a bad idea. But there'll be axes and saws for cutting down any timber that I need to cut down. Pocket knife multi-tool helped me a lot last time. I didn't even realize it would, but just cutting down little branches with it is very helpful. Loppers, which are clippers. So the loppers and the saw, again, I'll be using to clear all the branch and brush up. A Pulaski, that's a picture of a Pulaski. It's like an axe, and then the other side of the axe is bent into a hoe. So it's a multi-tool again. It's very helpful. You can use it to chop and to build the tread. And I'll be using the hoe and the shovel as well for digging up the tread and the switchbacks. And yeah, those are the tools I'll be using. So in conclusion, this senior year project has been great, and it was a lot of fun. And I definitely learned a lot more during this whole process than I would have ever in a class. I mean, I obviously learned a lot about trails, but I also learned about dealing with people, conservation, maintenance, about the environment, getting volunteers and all that leadership stuff. I mean, it was just a great overall experience, and I'm really glad that I did it. So yeah, I'm done. I'd be glad to take questions if you have any.
Who made the original trail? Was it the people that have the campsite, or was it kind of a naturally occurring trail from animal traffic, or do you know?
Yeah, they actually built the trail.
Okay.
They didn't really like go into as much scholarship as I did,
No.
I guess. So they just kind of made a straight line going to the campsite. So.
Mike, what will the surface of the trail ultimately be then when it's complete?
It'll look like.
It'll be the tamp down?
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to dig it up and then kind of tap it down. Yeah.
Who's your labor force?
Great question. I've been promoting I've been trying to get volunteers. I've been going through the social networks, Facebook. I put it on my wiki. I made this calendar so people can just sign up for what weekends they want. So hopefully, and I already have about 7 or 8 volunteers, but hopefully I'm going to have 3 to 4 for each of those weekends. So.
I know some trails have. It's awfully long, isn't it? Some trails have like edges, maybe like in state parks or
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know if you're planning to, like, how will you know how wide the trail is? Will it be marked in some way? Will it be a visual thing?
Yeah, the trail that's already there, they actually cut down a bunch of birch trees to line it. So I'm probably just going to recycle those and use those. And then any rocks that I find, I'll mark up the trailhead with there's a big rock that stands right at the trailhead. So I'll mark that. Then I'll be using the birch trees that they cut down.
How long is the trail?
It's about 1,200 feet. It's a 10-minute pleasant walk. It's very nice. Yeah.
Were you ever overwhelmed by building a trail? I mean, it seems, when you think about it at first.
Yeah. Before, like, as soon as I got to Maine the first time, I just kind of, I was like walking out of the tent, and I was by myself, and I was just like, what am I doing here? I can't even do this. And then, but once I started working, it kind of just felt natural. And as long as you set up little goals for yourself, like, okay, I'm just going to do this, and I'm just going to get to this point, and then from there you can be like, okay, well, that wasn't too bad, so I'll go to this point. And you just, as long as you just keep making those little goals, then it worked out fine. It wasn't very overwhelming at all.
Was it difficult? Oh, go, Sue.
Energy.
Was it difficult to select your particular topic? In the sense, how did you decide? As you said, you were looking in Newton, but you went to Maine. Were there other choices also?
Yeah, that was pretty much the longest process so far, just finding a place. I was calling the Cove in Auburndale. I was talking to Cold Springs, Nahanton Park, all the parks around here, because I don't have a car, so it is kind of hard to get up to Maine. It's like a 2.5-hour drive, so I do only have weekends to work there. But pretty much all the public land is just closed off if you want to do anything with the time span of a month or so. And then a couple of my friends did tell me that they have private land that they want me to work on, but this just ended up being kind of the best solution.
Can you talk a little bit about how you used time once fourth term began?
Yeah. So for a lot of fourth term, it was spent kind of researching more into the environmental aspect. I was reading all the books and getting interviews. I went to Argentina for 10 days, and I was lucky enough to be able to go to a national park called Iguazu National Park. It's on the border of Brazil and Argentina, and it's a beautiful place, and they actually have these amazing trails there that I didn't expect this at all. I was expecting, it's like the rainforest, so I was expecting kind of this jungle walk, but they ended up having all these raised walkways, so it was like completely man-made, but it was a good chance to see different types of trails. And I got a really good interview from a national park ranger there. So, and then I've just been, working in Maine. I got to put up those flags. I got to flag it out a little bit, survey the land, and that's what it's been so far. Thank you.